Before Israel could cross the Jordan, there was a battle in heaven. The archangel Michael and Satan fought over Moses' corpse. When the battle ended, God hid the body so completely that no one has found it in 3,400 years. But what happened next would change everything. Within days, God did 7 things in rapid succession, things that had been impossible while Moses lived. And the last one? A warrior appeared to Joshua with a drawn sword, delivering a message that would redefine everything. This is the story of what happened the moment Moses died. But before we begin, if you love deep Bible studies and want to uncover what most people miss, like this video and subscribe to this channel. Now, let's begin. 30 days passed while Israel mourned in the plains of Moab. 2 million people sat exposed and grieving, their greatest prophet gone, their next leader still unproven. Across the Jordan, the Canaanite kings were watching. They knew Moses was dead. They knew the nation was paralyzed. If there was ever a moment to strike, this was it. But no attack came. For reasons the text never explains, Israel remained untouched. And then the mourning ended. God spoke. And what followed was unlike anything Israel had experienced in 40 years of wandering. 7 events unfolded in rapid succession, each one unprecedented, each one reshaping Israel's future. Here is the first. Event 1. God speaks directly to Joshua. Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 9. The mourning is over, the tents are silent. And then, God speaks. Not to a prophet, not through a priest, directly to Joshua. Moses, my servant, is dead. 4 words. No eulogy, no comfort. Just a fact. And then, now therefore arise. This is what succession looks like when God is in charge. No transition team, no handover meeting, no grace period. One leader is buried. The next receives orders before the dirt settles. For the first time in 40 years, God commissioned a new leader. Think about that. One man had been God's voice for 4 decades. And in an instant, someone else was chosen. That had never happened before. And the way God did it, no ceremony, no anointing, just 4 words. Moses, my servant, is dead, was brutal in its simplicity. But here's what most people miss. 3 times in this passage, God tells Joshua to be strong and courageous. 3 times in 9 verses. Why the repetition? Because Joshua was terrified. Think about it. For 40 years, he stood in Moses' shadow. He was the assistant, the second, the one who carried out orders. He watched Moses part the sea. He watched Moses descend from Sinai with a face glowing from God's presence. He watched Moses strike the rock and water pour forth. And now, Moses is dead. And 2 million people are looking at Joshua, waiting for him to do what Moses did. God didn't say, "Be strong," because Joshua was confident. He said it because Joshua wasn't. 3 times. The most powerful being in the universe, repeating himself. That's how afraid Joshua was. But then comes the promise that changed everything. Verse 5. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. The same presence, the same power, the same God, different man, same mission. Event 2, Joshua commands a 3-day countdown. The next morning, officers spread through the camp, hundreds of thousands of tents, millions of people, and they all hear the same message. Prepare your provisions. In 3 days, we cross. 3 days, 72 hours. After 40 years of wandering, the wait is over in less than a week. No nation in history has ever moved this fast after losing its founder. 3 days to cross a flooded river with 2 million people? Generals today with satellites and helicopters wouldn't attempt this. Joshua did it with nothing but a promise. But think about what Joshua is doing here. He's just been commissioned hours ago. He's never led anything beyond a military campaign. And his first act is to announce an impossible deadline. No general in history would do this. You don't move an entire nation with children, elderly, livestock, carts, supplies, across a river at flood stage in 3 days. It's logistically insane. Unless you know something no one else knows. Joshua wasn't operating on logistics. He was operating on a promise. God said, "Arise and cross." Joshua said, "We cross in 3 days." The countdown created something fear never could: momentum. Once the clock started, there was no going back. Every hour brought them closer to the river. Every minute made retreat more impossible. This is how God often works. He doesn't wait for readiness. He creates deadlines that force movement. And those who obey, even when it makes no sense, find themselves on the other side of the impossible. Event 3. The spies enter Jericho and meet Rahab. Before the crossing, Joshua sends 2 men into enemy territory. Just 2. No army, no backup. Just 2 spies walking into a city that wants them dead. They enter Jericho and find refuge in the most unlikely place, the house of a prostitute named Rahab. Now, some scholars wonder why spies would go to such a house. Others note it was strategic, a place where strangers coming and going wouldn't raise suspicion. But whatever the reason, they end up hiding under flax on her roof while the king's soldiers search below. And then Rahab speaks, and what she says changes everything. "I know that the Lord has given you the land." This is a Canaanite woman. She worships other gods. She's never read Moses' law. But listen to what she says next. "We have heard how the Lord dried up the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt. And as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted. There was no courage left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. 40 years. The Red Sea was 40 years ago, and the nations are still terrified. This is the intelligence the spies bring back. Not troop counts, not wall measurements. Something far more valuable. The enemy already knows they've lost. They just don't know when it will happen. Rahab makes a deal. A scarlet cord in the window. When the walls fall, anyone in her house will be spared. Whether intentional or not, the symbolism is unmistakable. A red marker on a doorway. Protection during judgment. The Passover is happening again, this time for a Canaanite who chose to believe. But here's where everything changes. What happens next at the Jordan River has been misunderstood for centuries. Because it wasn't just a miracle, it was a message. And that message was aimed directly at Canaan's kings. Event 4. The Jordan River parts. During flood season, Israel reaches Jordan, and then they see the problem. The text is specific. The Jordan was at flood stage. Verse 15 makes it clear. The river overflows all its banks during harvest time. This wasn't a stream you could wade across. This was a swollen, roaring torrent that had claimed lives for centuries. 2 million people stand at the edge, looking at water they cannot cross. Behind them, wilderness. Ahead, the promise. Between them, an impossible barrier. Joshua gives the order. The priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant will go first. Think about what's being asked. The most sacred object in Israel, carried by priests, walking straight into floodwaters. No bridge, no boats, just feet and faith. The priests step forward. 2 million people hold their breath. And the moment, the exact moment, their feet touch the water, the text says the flow stopped. Not gradually, not slowly. The waters stood and rose up in a heap at a city called Adam, 30 kilometers upstream. Do you understand what that means? The riverbed didn't clear for a few meters. It dried for 30 kilometers, longer than a marathon. The entire nation walked across not on a narrow path, but on a highway carved through nature by divine command. If God wanted Israel to cross comfortably, He could have chosen low water season. He didn't. He chose flood season because this wasn't about convenience, it was about terror. Joshua 5, verse 1. As soon as all the kings of the Amorites and all the kings of the Canaanites heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan, their hearts melted, and there was no longer any spirit in them. The crossing wasn't just logistics, it was psychological warfare. Every king in Canaan watched their greatest natural defense disappear in an instant. Whatever courage they had left died that day at the Jordan. Event 5. Memorial stones are raised. The crossing is done. 2 million people stand on the west side of the Jordan for the first time in their history. But God isn't finished. He tells Joshua, "Send 12 men back into the riverbed. Have each one pick up a stone from the exact spot where the priests stood." Why stones? Because stones don't forget. These weren't decorative. They were evidence, physical proof that something impossible had happened. God knew that a generation later, people would doubt. They'd say, "That's just a story." They'd say, "It couldn't have happened that way." So God built a courtroom exhibit, 12 stones, heavy enough that no one could claim they were tossed there casually, visible enough that children would ask questions. What do those stones mean? That was the point. Every time a child asked, the story would be retold. The faith would be transferred. Memory would be renewed. But here's the detail most people miss, the shocking part. Joshua set up another 12 stones, in the middle of the Jordan, underwater, hidden. Why would God command a monument no one would see? What is heaven memorializing that humans aren't meant to find? 2 memorials, one for the people to see, one hidden beneath the surface. The text doesn't explain, but perhaps God was making a point. Some things are remembered whether humans see them or not. The rocks beneath the water testify even when no one is watching. What you do in secret still leaves a mark. Even if no one sees it, heaven remembers. Event 6. Manna stops after 40 years. Joshua chapter 5, verse 12. 14 words that end a 40-year miracle. And the manna ceased the day after they ate of the produce of the land. Just like that. Gone. Imagine waking up that morning. Every day for 40 years, every single day, you walked outside and the ground was covered. White flakes, sweet like honey. Enough for everyone. You didn't plant it. You didn't earn it. It just appeared. Your children have never known anything else. Your grandchildren were born collecting manna. It's not just food, it's the rhythm of life. Wake up, collect, eat, repeat. And then one morning, nothing. Just dirt. Just silence. Just empty ground where provision used to be. The text doesn't record their reaction. But imagine the panic, the confusion. Did we do something wrong? Did God leave us? No. Something else was happening. For 4 decades, Israel was fed like an infant, milk from heaven. But you can't conquer a land with a dependence mentality. You can't fight wars while waiting for your food to fall from the sky. The manna's end wasn't cruel. It was graduation. God was saying, "You're not children anymore. This is your land now. Work it." And here's the uncomfortable truth. Miracles make poor soldiers. A people who expect daily deliverance rarely develop the discipline to build, fight, and endure. The wilderness miracle ended because the conquest demanded something different. Not dependence, but partnership. Not passive receiving, but active cultivation. Some blessings end because you've outgrown them, and the end of one provision is often the doorway to a greater one. Event 7. The commander of the Lord's army appears. Joshua is alone. The camp is behind him. Jericho's walls loom ahead. Perhaps he's planning. Perhaps he's praying. Perhaps he's terrified. And then he looks up. A man stands before him, sword drawn, ready for battle. Joshua does what any commander would do. He challenges the stranger. Are you for us or for our adversaries? It's a simple question, binary. Pick a side. The answer is not what Joshua expected. No, neither. I am neither for you nor against you. Then who are you? I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come. In one sentence, everything Joshua thought about this conquest is reframed. He assumed Israel was leading the war. He assumed they were the main army, and God was their ally. He was wrong. Heaven had its own army, its own commander, its own campaign. This war had begun before Israel even crossed the Jordan, and Joshua wasn't the general. He was joining a battle already in motion. Watch what happens next. Joshua falls on his face. He worships, and the commander doesn't stop him. If this were an ordinary angel, worship would be refused. We see that elsewhere in Scripture. But this figure accepts it. He tells Joshua to remove his sandals because the ground is holy. The same words spoken to Moses at the burning bush. Many scholars believe this was no ordinary angel. This was a theophany, a visible appearance of God himself. The commander of heaven's army standing on a battlefield, sword drawn, message clear. You are not fighting alone. You never were. And this war was never yours to lose. Joshua had asked whose side this warrior was on. The answer revealed a deeper truth. It's not about God joining our side. It's about us joining His. When we examine these 7 events together, a structure emerges. The first 3 established authority, God's commission to Joshua, Joshua's command to the people, and Rahab's confirmation that the land was ripe for conquest. The next 2 demonstrated power, the Jordan parting and the stones of memorial proving that God's strength had not diminished with Moses' death. The final 2 signaled transition, the manna ending and the commander appearing, marking the shift from wilderness survival to active warfare. This was not random. This was choreographed. Consider the paradox. The man who parted the Red Sea could not cross the Jordan. The man who received the law on Sinai could not enforce it in Canaan. The man who saw God's glory face to face could not see the warrior with the drawn sword. Moses was necessary until he became the obstacle. Everything that happened after Moses' death could not happen while Moses lived. Moses could not lead Israel into the land. He was forbidden. Moses could not eat the produce of Canaan. He would never touch its soil. His death didn't interrupt God's plan. It was God's plan. Christian interpreters have long noted a pattern here. The book of Hebrews argues that Moses represented the law, and the law could bring Israel to the border, but not into rest. It took Joshua to lead them across, and Joshua's Hebrew name, Yehoshua, is the same name later given to Jesus. The Septuagint uses the same Greek word for both, Jesus. Whether the biblical authors intended this connection or whether later readers discovered it, the parallel has shaped centuries of Christian interpretation. What the law could not accomplish, one bearing that name would complete. The word instantly is not hyperbole. These 7 events occurred within days. No gradual transition, no adjustment period, no time to grieve before the next crisis. It was like being handed the keys to a company the day after the founder dies. No training period, no transition team, just immediate responsibility. God did not wait for Israel to feel ready. He did not wait for Joshua to find confidence. He moved immediately, and Israel had to keep up. Those who waited often missed the moment. Those who moved with God, however afraid, found themselves part of something greater than they could have imagined. Moses died. Joshua rose. The Jordan parted. Jericho fell. And Israel learned something they would forget within a generation. Conquest is not ownership. The land was never theirs to keep. It was theirs to steward. When they forgot that, they lost everything Moses never got to touch. The pattern repeats. Leaders die. Promises endure. And God's plan always moves faster than grief allows. We began with a battle over a corpse, Michael and Satan contending for the body of a man who spoke with God face to face. That body vanished. But what Moses built did not. Remember, Moses climbed that final mountain with eyes undimmed and strength undiminished. He wasn't carried to his death. He walked. When he saw everything he would never touch, he didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply died. A leader who knew when his role was finished. The servants of God are not indispensable. The work continues. The mission advances. Heaven's timeline does not pause for human loss. Some of us are called to start what others will finish. Some of us will see the vision, but never live in it. And that is not failure. That is faithfulness. Moses prepared the way for those who would cross. And one day, on another mountain, he would finally set foot in that land, standing beside Elijah, speaking with Jesus about another exodus yet to come. So, let me ask you, what Jordan are you standing in front of right now? What promise feels impossible because the river is at flood stage? Joshua was terrified. God told him 3 times to be strong. If you're afraid, you're in good company. Fear doesn't disqualify you. Obedience in the middle of fear is what God honors. The water won't part until your feet get wet. So whatever your Jordan is, step in. Now I want to hear from you. What part of this message hit you the hardest? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. If this revealed something in Scripture you hadn't seen before, subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out my channel for more content like this. We go deep into the passages most people skip over. Share this with someone who's standing at their own Jordan right now. They need to hear this. The conquest of Jericho begins in our next video. The walls didn't just fall, they fell inward. And that detail changes everything you were taught in Sunday school.